Thank you, everyone, for being here in the midst of a global pandemic and calls for racial justice. We really appreciate you spending time with us today to talk about what safe streets mean to you. Um, this is the virtual open house for Vision Zero Houston, and the purpose of today's meeting is to hear from you what safe streets mean and provide us with feedback that will be part of our Vision Zero action plan due out in September of this year. Slides for today's meeting can be found in the meeting chat, so you can follow along. And in addition to today's virtual meeting, you can reach us at any time at our email, which is mobility.planning@houstontx.gov, as well as just give us a call at our hotline number, 832-393-6660. So that will be at the bottom of each of these slides. Feel free to reach out with questions or comments after this meeting is over. So just a few meeting instructions. If you're new to Teams, there are a few ways to interact. We ask that people stay muted. There will be designated time for discussion, and you can unmute and speak up at that time. The mute feature is this little microphone, and it's muted when it has the slash through it. At any time throughout the open house today, you can post in the meeting chat here if you have a comment or question. You can also use this raise your hand feature. So if you scroll to the bottom of your screen, you'll see this whole bar pop up, and you can raise your hand, type in the chat, and staff will call on you or read your comment out loud when it's time. And if you're dialing in and you're not seeing the screen, you can press *6 to mute and unmute. So again, we'll call it out when we'll open the virtual meeting to discussion. And at that time, you can unmute and ask a question or pose a comment. So the flow for today's open house is really meant to be convenient for anyone to pop in and out at any time. But in general, we're structuring it so that at the top of each hour at 4, 5, 6, and 7 o'clock, we'll do a introduction to Vision Zero and ways that you can contribute, how you can help make our streets safe for everyone. At the bottom of each hour, so around 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, and 7:30, we're going to speak with a local expert and open it up for discussion. So you can ask questions of the local expert that we'll be speaking with. You can provide comments and share what safe streets mean to you. And again, at any time, feel free to ask questions in the chat. And if you'd like to speak up, use that raise your hand feature. All of this feedback today will be part of our Vision Zero action plan that is due out in September of this year. And this is just the first in a series of public meetings to hear from you. And whether they be virtual or in person, we are going to be doing our absolute best to engage with as many folks between now and September. And before we go any further, I would like to hand it over to our Planning Department Director, Margaret Wallace-Brown.
Good afternoon, Houston. I am so glad you joined us here for our first Vision Zero open house. My name is Margaret Wallace-Brown, and I'm Planning Director for Houston. I'm happy that you've joined us to help us develop our action plan that will achieve our goal of eliminating all traffic deaths and serious injuries by 2030. Mayor Turner signed an executive order last August instructing the Planning Department to create an action plan because he knows the importance of keeping Houstonians safe. He understands that safety for all road users, whether they're automobile drivers, bicyclists, motorcyclists, pedestrians, whoever, keeping everyone safe is imperative for keeping Houston moving. Achieving safe and accessible streets for everyone requires us to shift how we think about moving around our city. Our action plan will be collaborative effort with more than 15 partner agencies, and I see many of them on the call right now. It's data-based and it'll be community-based. We really want your input, and today marks a great step in that direction. Please give us your comments. Please give us your thoughts. We want to build a plan that works for all Houstonians. I'm going to hand it back to Lauren, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Margaret. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Um, Before we go into what is Vision Zero, I think it's really important to address um, the intersection of transportation and social and environmental justice. Safe streets are critical for every community, but we have not historically invested equitably. Um, and zero traffic deaths and serious injuries don't always mean safe streets for everyone. So Vision Zero is our opportunity to correct this historical imbalance that has really negatively impacted low-income people and communities of color. And we'll be talking more about ways that this Vision Zero effort will be equitable. So just a little behind the scenes introductions. My name is Lauren Grove. I'm a transportation planner here in the planning department. You'll also be hearing from David Fields, who's the chief transportation planner. And we have an awesome transportation planning team here in the planning department. Sharon, Melissa, Brian, and Pete are working behind the scenes. So if you see their names in the chat, just know that they're there to help answer any questions or comments you have, and they'll also be reporting out. We also have Jennifer Osland, Katrina Bayer, and Teresa Geisecker helping us too. So again, keep your eyes on the chat for those names. They're here to help us out and pop in when needed. And you just heard from our planning director, Margaret Wallace Brown. So what is Vision Zero? Vision Zero is a global strategy to end traffic deaths and serious injuries. It was founded in Sweden in the 1990s and has since been adopted by cities globally, including 45 plus cities here in the United States. It really is a shift in how we think about traffic safety. So no loss of life by traffic crash is acceptable, and traffic deaths are preventable. Vision Zero acknowledges that we're humans and we make mistakes, but those mistakes don't mean that we should be involved in a tragic traffic crash. No loss of life is acceptable. It also means that we can design our transportation as a system that is forgiving of those mistakes and that also prioritizes the quality of human life. Vision Zero is equitable, focusing investments in areas disproportionately impacted by traffic deaths and serious injuries. So for example, in low-income communities, people in low-income communities are twice as likely to be killed while walking when compared to high-income communities. And for more information about what other cities are doing both globally and here in the United States, a great resource is the Vision Zero Network, so visionzeronetwork.org. There are case studies and webinars about this global shift in how we're thinking about traffic safety. So I recommend checking out that website. So what does Vision Zero mean for Houston? Vision Zero was adopted in Houston in August of 2019 as a commitment to end traffic deaths and serious injuries by 2030. It is a strategy to make the paradigm shift to improve mobility for everyone who moves around, whether it's by foot, car, bike, wheelchair, or transit. It prioritizes safety and accessibility for people of all ages and abilities. And Vision Zero for Houston means that traffic deaths and serious injuries are an unacceptable and preventable public health issue. These are just a few of the ways that Vision Zero will have an impact in Houston, and we need to better understand what it means for everyone else. So we're going to do a little interactive activity here where we're going to ask you to get out your phone or open a new web browser on your computer and go to slido.com and type in the code VZHTX. So if you can go ahead and go to slido.com, and there's the code VZ like Vision Zero and HTX like Houston, Texas. We want to hear from you what you think streets are for, and when do streets and intersections feel unsafe? So 2 questions here. What are streets for, and when do streets and intersections feel unsafe? This is an open text of response, so you can feel free to put in whatever response resonates with you. So we will check back in just a few moments at what people are saying. And in the meantime, we asked these very similar questions prior to this meeting to some Houstonians, and we'd like to share what some of your fellow folks are saying here. So I'm going to play this video. I'm not going to play the video because, of course, the technology likes to crash when you need it most, but here we go.
Lauren, I'm not sure if the sound is working.
Oh, okay. Hold on just a moment. Let's go back here. Thanks, David, for catching that. Give me just a minute, folks. Thanks for bearing with me. Close this out. There we go. So how about now? Really what we were trying to do is talk to people outside of the transportation world about traffic crashes in Houston. What we're going to be talking about are questions related to traffic crashes. I'm going to ask 5 questions that are related to traffic crashes.
Are we talking highways or are we talking regular, just around town streets?
Houston proper, couple hundred.
I would assume it's hundreds, if not more.
I do not know, but I'm sure it's over 100.
I say about 70,000 people.
Per year, I would guess. 200.
I'd say maybe like 15,000 or something.
I'm just gonna guess and say 350.
People driving too fast and not paying attention.
Probably speeding, driver impairment, and driver inattention.
I think that's like the main one. Like literally people just not paying attention.
I see a lot of confusion on the roadway, missing exits, people stopping in the middle of the highway because they've missed an exit.
Texting, being impaired from alcohol or drugs.
Drinking while driving is probably the #1 leading cause of crashes.
Lack of infrastructure that prioritizes pedestrians and cyclists. Probably some road design.
No, I don't think so.
I'd like to think so.
No.
I'd love to say yeah, but probably not.
I hope so.
I don't think so, but I'd like to hope so.
I think there used to be a time where, single death was front page news, and now it's become so normalized.
I think as car dependent as Houston is, there probably will always be some fatalities, but I think they can be greatly reduced.
Do I think we can get down to, 10 or 20 realistically? Yeah, someday.
Decrease the amount of, I guess, like crashes on the highway, and then figure out like a different goal for the actual regular roads.
Under 25.
I think acceptable is 0.
0, of course.
To have 0?
None.
For my family, it'd be 0. I think the goal should be 0, yes.
I would have a stated goal of 0.
I think the goal should be 0 for everyone. I don't think anyone should suffer.
I think the goal should be 0 for everyone.
Okay, so let's go ahead and see what people are saying, what streets are for, and what makes them feel unsafe. So this is the result of the poll. Let's see, we've got about 36 responses. The streets are for access for people to places, streets are for cars, streets are for the entire community, streets are for everyone. Commuting, exercising, playing, enjoying my community, commerce. Streets and intersections feel unsafe when there's not enough space between the sidewalk and the street, when cars take priority over other users. Streets and intersections feel unsafe when I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Streets and intersections feel unsafe when the cars are fast, the cars are unpredictable, when I'm forced to travel close to cars, especially when they are fast. They feel unsafe when they are not improved to keep up with growth and ever-changing lifestyles, aging populations, speeding, and overuse of vehicle technologies from phones, vehicle GPS units. Great, so thank you so much for responding to that. We're going to keep this poll open. Feel free to continue adding to it. We'll revisit it throughout the open house and continue to read responses. So thank you so much for that. So some of you may be wondering what the answers were to the questions that were in the video. And we asked how many people do you think die on our roads every year and what the goal should be. And one of the participants said the goal should be 0 for everyone. So where are we? Nearly 220 people are killed every year in traffic crashes on Houston streets, and more than 1,000 people are seriously injured every year in traffic crashes on Houston streets. And these crashes are all preventable. That's what Vision Zero says, that no loss of life by traffic crash is acceptable, and we can prevent traffic deaths and serious injuries from happening. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we can do that. Oops. So one of the ways that we get there is our Vision Zero action plan, which I've mentioned is due out in September of 2020. That action plan is really grounded. It's a major components. One of those is that it is equitable. So we want to make sure that we are prioritizing street safety improvements and investments in areas that have been disproportionately impacted by traffic deaths and serious injuries, and focus on communities that have been traditionally underserved and under invested. The action plan is going to focus on engaging with community members to design safe streets. So as transportation planners, as traffic engineers, as officials, we oftentimes tend to think that certain streets would be good for certain things, and we really need to engage with our communities to get a better understanding of their vision for safe streets and their vision for their community. And the action plan and Vision Zero in and of itself is not possible and would not be successful without a collaborative and multidisciplinary approach. So you see here are just a few of the partnerships that we've created since August of 2019, working with each of these agencies on a joint effort to end traffic deaths and serious injuries in Houston. And members of these groups are part of our data and communication subcommittees, have contributed and volunteered their time, and have really lent expertise in policy and public health. And for that, we thank all of you, and that's what is going to get us to a holistic approach for Vision Zero. And so where we've gotten to so far is a overarching, safe, equitable, accessible transportation system. So we're not thinking about each mode separately. They're not in a vacuum. They're all really closely tied together. And it focuses on 4 goals: make driving safe, make biking safe, make connecting to transit safe, and make walking safe. So these are all, these almost talk to each other and share the street, share the wheels, and share the space in a way that is safe for everyone to move around. One thing that we really need this action plan to be grounded in is community feedback. And it starts here with this virtual open house, and it will continue. But we need to challenge ourselves, especially during this time where we're not able to go out to public meetings and interact with people in the way that we really want to. So we have a call to action for us, ourselves, and for all of you here joining us today. To get feedback, we are challenging ourselves to receive 6,687 pieces of information, of comments from community members for the 6,687 lives lost and seriously injured in the last 5 years between 2014 and 2018. That is the data set that we are looking at for Vision Zero. We encourage you to take our pledge, complete the survey, and use the map that's on the website. We're going to show you that in just a minute. But this is really a call for us to engage with people in as best as we can, as much as we can, so that way this is a meaningful action plan, meaningful for the community. And call on all of you to help us with this effort. Share the word about Vision Zero. Encourage people to go to our website, www.visionzerohouston.com. So just really briefly, going to show what is on our website and ways that you can contribute feedback. So the first thing I'll point out on visionzerohouston.com, if you go to the website, I'm going to pull this over here, is a Vision Zero pledge. So you can just click on this link and pledge to helping us end traffic deaths and serious injuries, but specific call to actions to safely share streets with everyone who may drive, walk, bike, and use a wheelchair, to drive at safe speeds, to not drive under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and to not drive distracted. These are some of the main contributing factors when we think about our traffic deaths and serious injuries. So that question that we asked in the video, what are the leading causes? These are some of them, and we need your help in pledging not to do these things that we know are part of traffic deaths and serious injuries. Another way that you can contribute feedback is by, hold on just a second, using our map and survey. So this may or may not be on our website currently. Apologies, we're having a bit of technical difficulties, of course, but we do have staff who I introduced earlier who can help us during this open house. If you have a street or intersection that you're concerned about, we can identify that using our mapping tool, and as well as a survey where, similar to the questions we asked earlier about what are streets for, we encourage you to fill out the survey in a bit more detail about when they feel unsafe, and furthermore helping us identify locations for traffic safety improvements. There are over 24,000 miles of street in Houston, and crashes happen everywhere, and we need your help in prioritizing where we focus our efforts. And so that gets at some of that criteria. And as well, we want to hear from you. What do you want to see happen right now to improve street safety? There are so many things that we could be doing, and we want to hear from you. What do you want that to look like right now? If there's an action that you want the city to take, we want to hear that from you. And just a note on both of these, there's also an option to write in, so don't feel limited to the responses that we have here. This is just what we generated, and we know that you all have ideas as well. So those are just a few of the ways that you can contribute feedback, and we'll be going over those throughout the open house today. And if you're typing in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and talk about what safe streets mean, we're going to be taking that feedback and putting it as part of our action plan, and that will be part of our call to action of getting over 6,000 pieces of information that will help guide us in reaching zero. So I'm going to just take a pause here, and I'll ask staff if there are any questions or comments that people are posting in the chat. Anybody wanted to unmute themselves if you're dialing in by pressing *6 and you had a question?
Hey, Lauren.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, sir.
The data that TxDOT has shows that 90 or more percentage of people are killed on the streets of Texas because of the contributing factor being the human factor. And as we see over the years, for the last 20 years, there hasn't been a day without a death in Texas specifically. So talking about that, when we issue the driver license, it's a behavioral issue that people have become used to, of being in a panic mode driving, not paying attention, texting, and all those are behavioral issues. 90% of the crashes are occurring because of the behavioral issues. So what we can do at the ground level is to have better drivers on the street for the future generations. We are looking forward to it. And if we can institute a program at the high school level, when a new driver license is being issued, to implant that seed of safety in the minds of the young generation. Some people are so used to driving recklessly, they never change. They see death after death. So we can have a systematic approach also to eliminate the crashes that are causing all these injuries and all these deaths. So my request would be to incorporate some sort of training and licensing issues to improve our safe habits, implant those safe habits in the kids that are coming out. If the parents are not understanding, kids may understand. And Vision Zero is possible if we all work together.
Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for speaking up and bringing up the issue of thinking about training and education. That's definitely a huge part of a Vision Zero effort. And so thank you for speaking to that. Melissa, did I hear you earlier? Was there a specific?
Yeah, we have a person raising their hand. We have Nasser Midamba. I'm not sure. It's been raised for a little while, so I'm not quite sure if it was a question or a comment.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious. I saw all the companies listed on your screen that are collaborating or working with you. And I was curious if the telecom industry would be part of this type of vision, because in like cities like Austin, we're working with them to install smart technologies on the traffic lights to detect vehicles, things like that. With smart vehicles coming our way, maybe that's something to consider to minimize all the accidents, not only at the traffic intersections, but along the ways.
Yes, great feedback. We've definitely had a few folks at the table to talk about vehicle technology and are always open to bringing more folks to the table to bring that perspective. So I'm gonna, we'll definitely have more time for question and answer. And actually, I think our next agenda and part of this is talking with local experts. And so I'd like to go ahead and invite Jay Crossley to, let me take away my screen here, to speak with us about Vision Zero and the work that you're doing in Texas. And so we've got a few questions for you, but first, Jay, just want to welcome you. And if you could go ahead and just introduce yourself and tell us about the work you do related to transportation.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Yes. So my name's Jay Blaze Crossley. I'm executive director of a nonprofit called Farm and City. And our biggest program is Vision Zero Texas, leading the advocacy and community efforts supporting this movement statewide. I grew up in Houston in Montrose, went to Lamar High School, and then went to UT twice and was in Austin for 10 years. And then after graduate school, moved back to Houston and worked for an organization called Houston Tomorrow for 10 years. And we did a lot of work there on transit, but over time, more and more work on Vision Zero for Houston for a while now. And very briefly, Farm and City is a 501c3 nonprofit. We work to basically improve the quality of life for all Texans, looking at transportation, urban planning, sustainability, and equity issues. So not only do we work on Vision Zero, but also trying to improve access to transit funding, improve equity in our transportation decision-making systems, and move towards more sustainable regional growth models. And so I'm very excited to be here and talk to all y'all about what we can do to make Houston safer for everybody.
Thanks, Jay. So what's the first thing that you think of when I say safe streets?
You know, I have a somewhat young father. I have a 6-year-old son, and it really, I think about kids having freedom and having fun, and like I think about when I grew up in Montrose in the 80s. And by the time I was in middle school, I had my little gang of friends would skateboard around Montrose by ourselves. And at that time, I think it was really somewhat different, and the streets were somewhat safer. But that sense of freedom for children and really for everyone, for people of all ages, we want seniors to feel safe, to walk and access things in their neighborhood, and everybody in between. And so a lot of, for me, what Safe Streets is about is giving all of us access to freely move about and get to where we want to go and talk to people and see people and go to the coffee shop and things like that. I do have to say that I also think about the families that suffer, and this is an ongoing tragedy, and people really suffer hard from this. And so for them, I want us to fix this. And I work with a lot of families who have been through trauma and are trying to change this so others don't have to suffer like they do.
Thank you for saying that. So in saying that, if Vision Zero ends roadway deaths and serious injuries in Houston, what are the other benefits in addition to safety?
Yeah, and so a big one is obesity, and we have a huge obesity crisis in Texas and in Houston, and part of it is that parents are scared to let their kids walk around the neighborhood, and so generations of Houstonians basically not having active lifestyles, and not feeling free to ride a bike or to walk to school, and that has serious impacts, like not allowing people the option to have active transportation as a daily part of life really impacts our health. Also, it's the limiting factor. We always talk about, we have too much congestion and too many cars and people have to drive too much. And I think a real reason people in Houston don't walk or bike is because they don't feel safe. And so the lack of safety actually might cause some of our congestion and cause some of our other problems. And finally, there's a huge budget impact of lack of safety, and the cost to the people of Houston of crashes is much higher than the cost of congestion. And we've been, in recent times, been thinking about the role of police. And a huge element of the City of Houston Police Department budget is responding to traffic crashes. And so we're spending a huge amount of money and resources dealing with these not having a safe system.
Yeah, all of those components, sometimes we often don't think about when we think about traffic safety. So I'm glad that you brought that forward. I'm going to ask one more question, then I want to open it up to other folks who have questions. So what are some of the best approaches to safe streets across the state or the country, and what can Houston learn from them?
Well, I'm very excited about progress happening across the nation on speed and really rethinking how we think about speed. And for a long time, there's been an empty promise that you're going to get home faster. And that really hasn't worked, but it's also been very dangerous. And so across the nation, cities and states are changing the way we design our streets for speed. And so New York City has been a leader in this and actually changing the streets to make them designed so you feel comfortable driving at a safe speed and that everyone can use the street safely. And then Seattle has been a leader on this and basically completely changed their speed limits on every street. But it isn't just happening in the coasts. The city of Austin actually, what day is it? In 2 days, the Austin City Council will vote on a comprehensive speed management package, and they're expected to pass it unanimously. If they do, all neighborhood streets in the city of Austin will become 25-mile-an-hour streets, and many larger streets will be changed to 30 or 35, and they're going to go change the streets to make you feel comfortable driving at a safe speed. And that's the real problem, is if you drive on Outer Westheimer and try to drive 30, you are going to feel weird. So we need to actually redesign all our streets so you feel okay driving at a speed where you're less likely to kill someone. So I think that arena is exciting. And a key part of that is that investing in fixing our streets for speed can be done across the city and can impact every neighborhood and help all of us. And so I think that's an exciting front.
Great. Yeah. I think oftentimes it's easy to look at other cities and try and figure out best practices, and even in Austin, and it may look a little different here in Houston, but definitely it's great to be part of a network of other cities who are doing awesome work on street safety, especially as it relates to speed. Yeah. So I want to go ahead and I'll ask Melissa Beeler, who's on our staff, if there are questions or comments happening in the chat, either about Vision Zero for Jay or both.
There's a lot of comments. I am probably having some side conversations. Sorry. But I'd like to ask follow-up questions and, getting people's ideas of what's going on. There was a question of what is the speed limit in residential, which is a good thing for everybody to know.
Yeah, so the default speed limit in Texas on surface streets is 30 miles an hour. And so if there isn't a sign saying otherwise, it's 30 miles an hour. And so most residential streets in Houston, the speed limit is 30. There are some streets where the city has chosen to put in 25 mile an hour street speed signs. But the default is 30. We work at the state legislative level, and so we have a bill we've tried to get passed at the legislature to change that and to make the default statewide to 25, and then to allow cities to do 20. We will be trying that again next year, and we'll see.
Hi, Lauren, this is Sharon. I have a question for Jay, if I can jump in here.
Of course.
Now, Jay, there was a question that was actually put onto the chat that you addressed in the chat box, but I wanted to see if you could address it in speaking so others could hear it. And the question was, Bike Houston and League Houston have already identified high-risk intersections. Will this data be aggregated with all of the information that we're putting into Vision Zero?
Yeah, and so I was just responding that my understanding is that the city, that was over a year ago, and there was a study that focused only on high-risk intersections for pedestrians and people riding bikes, which was a very important study and helped move forward some projects to actually fix some of those intersections. But now the city's Vision Zero program, I think, has done a sort of much broader and more robust and good map, looking at the entire city and identifying the highest risk areas for everybody. And so whether you're walking or biking or driving places that there's the most risk. And I think that's very hopeful, because a big part of Vision Zero is having better information so we don't waste public funds. And so when the city has $1 million or $100 million to spend on fixing streets, now the Vision Zero program can provide a map showing you here's where you get the most bang for your buck, and the most people will be basically have safer access to that intersection. And just I'm fairly sure Link Houston and Bike Houston contributed significantly to the new maps. So I think it's a nice evolution of that process.
Thank you.
Does anybody who may be dialing in want to ask a question or have any comments that they'd like to share? This is a time for open discussion, so we want to hear from you all what you're thinking. And a reminder to press *6 to unmute yourself if you are dialing in.
I noticed that some people are talking about 25 mile an hour or 30 in the chat. And I will say that what Austin is doing Thursday, so what Austin's doing on Thursday, the city of Houston, in my understanding, could also do. And so I certainly will hope y'all check out. Part of what the city of Austin did is spend a lot of time studying the law and figuring out how to do it correctly. And so that even you're studying it, you can just cheat and take it from Austin if you wanted to make all neighborhood streets in Houston 25 miles an hour.
Lauren, we also have another question in the chat that I wanted to bring back to Jay. And this one says, how does the telecom industry contribute to this vision with the smart cars coming soon? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I always say, So I always say that if you're not taking sort of automated cars and robot cars and connected vehicles seriously, then you're not taking safety seriously. If you are only talking about automate robot cars, you're also not taking safety seriously. So I think we have to most likely, broad adoption and the city should do a lot right now to make people's lives safer. However, we should be moving quickly with technology that can make us safer. And so, yeah, there's a lot of kind of telecom, ITS, intelligent transportation systems or ITS investments that Texas cities have made and can make. There's a bunch of the intersections in Austin have all kinds of robots trying to figure out who's coming through at what speed. And I think that's a crucial element of all this as we go forward. There is one example. One of the things we lost because the Texas legislature outlawed red light cameras, aside from the basic safety benefits, is that in Austin, their red light camera system could actually tell if and about to run a red light, and the system would actually hold the other light red if it could tell someone's about to run through a red light. And so the system was actually preventing crashes. But since that was outlawed, that's gone, I think, my understanding. But we could figure out those kind of things to use technology to actually save lives.
There's another question in the chat really quick regarding funding. Thinking Nasser Midamba also mentioned, where is the funding coming from for all these proposals discussed? Will this result in tax increases for residents in Houston? Are private developers who are often seeking variances from Planning Commission, will they contribute, basically?
Yeah. I think the way I'll explain that is that really the TxDOT and the Texas Transportation Commission has adopted a road to zero, pretty much Vision Zero, but they called it something different, and decided to increase safety funding by $300 million a year last year, essentially moving some discretionary money they had from another pot to safety. And but there's something that they always say, and that the city of Austin always said. The city of Austin also has dedicated Vision Zero funding. They've done $20 million in bonds for Vision Zero twice in the last 4 years. However, TxDOT and City of Austin say that every transportation project, every dollar spent on transportation should be Vision Zero dollars. And everything we do, every time we rebuild a road, every time we build a sidewalk, we should make it as safe as possible, and we should be improving safety for all. And so I believe quite a lot of money on streets and quite a lot of money on transportation. And the Houston region spends a huge amount of money on transportation. And so somewhat being smarter about how we spend our existing money can achieve a lot of what we're trying to do. Although I do believe the city of Houston needs some amount of dedicated, targeted safety money to enhance safety. It's crucial there's some amount of Vision Zero money, which doesn't quite exist at this point in Houston.
Great. And this is Sharon again. Jay, we have a question in the queue from Greg. He wants to know if Vision Zero includes some form of re-education for drivers. Seems like there should be something maybe to coincide with license renewal, possibly.
Right. And yes, and there's lots of evidence all kinds more effective if you can educate people while you're changing the street. So if you, so City of Austin's doing its speed management changes. They're going to change signs everywhere and they're going to change designs, but they're going to do a huge education campaign while they do that. There are a lot of attempts. You know, if you get a ticket and you have to do driver safety education, across Texas, people have been trying to add education about sort of laws about how to be safe around pedestrians and things like that to driver safety education. So I think there's huge room for improvement there. But we have to. We have had. I grew up in Houston, and I grew up as everybody else as part of a culture of just being wildly dangerous and driving too fast. And you know, I was once a 15-year-old boy driving in Houston. I guess we have to change that culture, and that's.
Jay, are you with us? Looks like you.
He's frozen.
Frozen at the last little bit here. Well, we'll wait for him to pop back in. Melissa or Sharon, any other comments or questions?
Yes, we have a comment from Dexter Handy. He wants to talk about, or just maybe just state that driver's education programs and bicycle safety programs are really important. So we need to enhance those and focus on some of those as part of our concerns. And then we have Brad Sneed, who's asking, is there an appetite at the city for quick and cheap projects that we can do, you know, paint on the ground, plastic, something we can get done to make the city streets safer more quickly?
That is a great question. I think a lot of people have expressed interest in sort of having, you know, temporary installations, you know, quick fixes at places where we know that crashes are a problem. I definitely think that will be part of our Vision Zero action plan because we have heard so strongly about the need for that.
Lauren, can you speak to the orange lines on the map for Vision Zero? There was a question around, you know, there's been a lot of questions or some mentioning of like crash data and the use of crash data and being able to see what that looks like for the city of Houston.
Absolutely, yes. Let me, best way to show is to just go ahead and pull up the map on my screen. So let me get that up and share my screen with everyone. Okay. So what we're looking at right now is a map of Houston. This is our Vision Zero map tool. And we're asking for your feedback and comments, and it's pretty easy to do so. You just come over here and add a pin wherever you think, wherever you have a traffic safety concern, whether that's on a whole entire street, at an intersection. There are sidewalk concerns or gaps, this is a place to let us know that. And you can do so by indicating if your concern is related to when you're driving, walking, biking, using a wheelchair. And so you just find the location where your concern is and place the pin there and just answer 1 or 2 questions about that location. And you can do so anywhere in this map, but what we're seeing here in orange, the orange streets, the orange lines on the map are part of our high injury network. So we've had a data subcommittee who's been working really hard on looking at crash data and figuring out where the most fatal and serious injury crashes are occurring on our streets. And so that's what these orange lines represent. And there is a little, in this information box, there's a little bit more about those lines. And so if we think about the city of Houston and how many miles of streets there are, over 24,000. What the orange lines represent are just 6% of those streets. So that's about 1,500 miles. And 6% of those streets are where 60% of traffic deaths and serious injuries are occurring. So this is meant as a way to show people that we can already start to prioritize our efforts based on where we're seeing the most traffic deaths and serious injuries, but also additionally, what is happening in those areas? What was the crash? What does the street look like? How wide was it? How many lanes? What was going on at the time of the crash? Was it in the day or at night? So again, you can place your pin anywhere on the map, and the orange lines are really just indicating one additional way to look at crashes, which is where are they most occurring on our streets. And I see we've already got some responses here, which is fantastic. And so we encourage you to keep filling it out. It looks like we already, let's see, at Montrose and Westheimer, fast cars and many run the red light. Where do we got over here? Mike B. There's no convenient connection for bike and peds between River Oaks, Highland Village, and the Memorial Park area. So he has a safety concern biking in this area. So I'll just leave that up there. Are there any other? Anyone else want to chime in? Feel free to speak up. Ask a question in the chat. We are here as a resource.
Hi, Lauren. We have a comment from Jonathan Brooks on behalf of Link Houston. Just kind of thanking us, I guess, for bringing it up, but also wanting to make a point about equity issues in regards to bicycling, pedestrians, and safer streets. Can you talk about that just a bit, please?
Sure. So we know that, and this is not just unique to Houston and other cities that are looking at traffic deaths and serious injuries, that the more vulnerable road users are people walking and biking who are disproportionately impacted in traffic crashes. So in Houston, if we look at traffic deaths, 30% of traffic deaths are people walking and biking. And so we want to start to think about those vulnerable users in our strategy and how we can make places for everyone to walk and bike, and start to look at communities where maybe that's happening even more frequently, places without sidewalks and things like that. So really thinking about our communities in the context and investing in those areas where we may not have put as much investment previously. And so really focusing the effort on those vulnerable road users is a huge part of the Vision Zero strategy.